All right, we're diving back in. This time, it looks like some excerpts from a book called Gamechanger. Pranav, Surya and Pattabiraman, the authors, have got some interesting ideas about personal finance. You're really hoping to nail down how to manage money well, build wealth, and enjoy life to the fullest right. And specifically, you're curious about doing that while working a typical 9 to 5. This book says you can totally ditch those startup dreams and still achieve financial freedom.
What I find really interesting about this book is that they spend a lot of time talking about the psychology behind money, like how our emotions and biases can really mess with our financial
Oh,
decisions.
for sure. I know that firsthand.
It also kind of challenges some of those beliefs we hear all the time, like that whole thing about needing to own a home, the hype around joining startups, even how we think about travel.
Yeah, that startup myth is definitely a powerful one. It's so tempting to think about joining a new company and getting rich quick. But Game Changer seems to be saying, hold on, that might not be the smartest move financially, especially if you're not one of the first employees.
Right.
What's the reasoning there?
Well, they really dive deep into the realities of what it looks like financially to join a startup, particularly in the later stages. A lot of times the salary is way lower than you might expect, and then there's those long vesting periods for stock options.
So even if it takes off, you might not see the rewards for a while,
Exactly. And we can't forget the biggest risk of all,
which
that
is,
the startup might completely fail,
oh, of course.
and then you're left with very little to show for all those years of hard work.
Yeah, that's a sobering thought. So even if a startup does well, folks who join later might not get the windfall they were hoping for. That's definitely not a perspective you hear every day.
Not at all.
Instead, this book suggests that sticking with a more traditional corporate career might actually be a better way to build wealth.
Yeah, they actually make a pretty strong argument for the corporate route. A steady paycheck, gradual increases in income, and the overall stability of a corporate job, those could actually lead to similar, if not greater, financial success over time. They even lay out some scenarios comparing potential earnings in both startup and corporate settings.
Interesting.
And the results, I think, would surprise a lot of people.
I bet. That's a really powerful point. It really makes you rethink all those assumptions we have about career paths and what it takes to be successful financially. But even if you do have a solid corporate gig, managing your money well is still crucial, right?
Absolutely.
And that's where their conscious spending plan comes into play.
Right.
Can you break that down for us a bit?
Sure. So this plan is all about allocating your income with intention. They divide it into four main buckets.
4 buckets.
Yep. First, you've got your fixed costs, those unavoidable expenses that we all have. Then there's investments, which are obviously for those long-term goals like retirement. Then there's savings for things like maybe you want to take a big vacation or you're saving for a down payment on a house.
Makes sense so far.
And then the last bucket is what they call, wait for it, guilt-free spending.
Guilt-free spending. Okay, now you've got my attention.
I thought you might like that one. So this category is all about acknowledging that enjoying life right now is important. It's about setting aside money for things that bring you joy without feeling bad about it.
I love that.
Right. No more stressing over that latte or that new pair of shoes.
So it's not about deprivation or restriction.
Not at all.
It's about finding a balance.
Exactly. A balance between enjoying the present and making sure you're set for the future.
That definitely resonates with me. But let's be real for a second. Even with the best spending plan, those fixed costs, those essential expenses can be a real drag.
Oh, tell me about it. They can eat up a big chunk of your budget.
And Game Changer dives into some practical ways to minimize those costs, right?
They do. For example, they give you specific tactics for negotiating things like your internet bill, your phone bill, even those cable TV subscriptions that seem to keep going up.
Ooh, I'm all ears on that one.
Mm.
Those bills are a constant battle for me. Do they give specific tips?
They do. They really emphasize staying calm and being persuasive when you're negotiating instead of getting aggressive or angry. They even provide some sample scripts you can use when you're talking to those service providers.
Oh, that's incredibly helpful. Having those scripts would make such a difference in feeling confident and prepared.
Hmm.
Now, let's tackle something that's a huge financial decision for many of us. Housing. Renting versus buying. It's a debate that never seems to end. It always feels like we're being told renting is just throwing money away.
Yeah, that's a common one.
What's Game Changer's take on that?
Well, they really go after that belief. They encourage you to really think it through and do a proper cost-benefit analysis of renting versus buying. And they really stress considering the opportunity cost of tying up all your money in a property. Like, What could you do with that money if it wasn't stuck in a mortgage?
That's such an important thing to consider. It's easy to get caught up in the emotions of owning a home without really understanding the financial side of things.
Absolutely.
That's a really good point. It's so easy to get caught up in the dream of owning a place without thinking about the financial trade-offs. What other insights do they have on this whole housing thing?
Well, they suggest looking at something called the price to rent ratio in your area. It basically helps you figure out if buying or renting makes more sense financially.
So it compares how much it costs to buy a place versus renting a similar one.
Exactly. And they also give some tips on negotiating a lower rent if you decide that renting is the better option for you right now.
Okay, that's super practical. I can already see how this book pushes you to really think critically about your finances. It's not just about following the crowd, it's about making choices that work for your own situation. But let's say you've done all that, trimmed your fixed costs, made a smart decision about housing. There's still that whole challenge of saving consistently, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. It's so easy to put it off or get impatient when it comes to saving.
Totally. Gamechanger addresses that, though, right?
They do. They talk about those psychological barriers that prevent us from saving, and they offer some strategies for overcoming them. One of the biggest things they recommend is automating your finances.
Automating. What do they mean by that?
It's basically setting things up so that a portion of your income automatically goes into your savings and investment accounts every month.
So you don't even have to think about it.
Exactly. It takes the emotion and willpower out of the equation. You just set it and forget it.
I like that. They actually share a real-life example of this, right?
Mhm.
Something about a friend who has his entire financial system automated.
They do. They talk about this friend who's basically on autopilot when it comes to his finances, and it shows just how simple and effective this approach can be. They even give a step-by-step guide on how to set up your own automated system.
Nice. It's great that they provide those practical steps. It's not just theory, it's something you can actually implement.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that's often mentioned but not always fully understood. Compound interest. Sometimes it feels like a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, it can be a little abstract.
How does Gamechanger make this concept more concrete?
They do a great job of breaking it down. They actually use visuals to show how even small, consistent investments can really grow over time because of this interest-on-interest effect.
Right, so it's like your money is making money, and then that money makes more money.
Precisely. It creates a snowball effect that can lead to significant wealth accumulation over the long run.
And they emphasize the importance of starting early, right?
Oh.
Even if you can only invest a small amount at first. Absolutely. Time is your greatest ally when it comes to compound interest. The earlier you start, the more time your money has to grow exponentially.
It's all about harnessing the power of time. Now, let's talk about something that can be a bit of a double-edged sword. Credit cards. They have a bit of a bad reputation, don't they?
They sure do. A lot of people are scared of them because they associate them with debt and those crazy high interest rates.
So what's Gamechanger's take on using credit cards responsibly?
They actually believe that credit cards can be really powerful tools for building wealth, but only if you use them strategically. They stress the importance of understanding how credit scores work and building a good credit history.
So it's about education and empowerment, not fear.
Exactly. It's about knowing how to play the credit card game to your advantage, not letting it control you.
What kind of advice do they give?
Well, they give some great tips on negotiating lower fees and waivers with banks. So you can actually save money by using credit cards wisely.
That's awesome.
And they really demystify the whole credit scoring system. They break it down in a way that's easy to understand. This section is particularly helpful for anyone who's new to credit cards or just feels a bit intimidated by them.
It's all about understanding the rules of the game and playing it smart. Okay, let's switch gears again and talk about something I think a lot of us dream about. Travel. It's often seen as a luxury, something you splurge on once you've reached a certain level of financial stability.
Right.
But Gamechanger seems to have a different view.
They do. They see travel as an essential part of a fulfilling life, and they dedicate a whole section to making travel more accessible, even if you're on a tight budget.
I love that. What's their secret? Do they have some magical travel hack?
Well, they have a whole bunch of strategies for finding incredibly cheap flights and accommodations.
Right.
They're big fans of using meta search engines like Skyscanner and Kayak to compare prices and find the best deals. They also talk about the importance of being flexible with your travel dates. Sometimes shifting your trip by a few days can save you a ton of money.
Oh, flexibility is key for sure. I've seen those airfares fluctuate like crazy depending on the day of the week. What else do they suggest?
They encourage you to think outside the box when it comes to accommodation. Like instead of always going for traditional hotels, why not try house sitting?
House sitting?
Yeah, there are platforms where you can stay in someone's home for free while they're away.
Wow, I never thought of that.
And they even give tips on negotiating lower prices on Airbnb rentals.
So it's all about being resourceful and savvy. I love how they approach travel with this mindset of getting more bang for your buck.
Right. It's not about sacrificing comfort or quality. It's about finding ways to experience more of the world without breaking the bank.
Exactly. They really reframe travel as an investment in yourself,
Yeah.
something that can broaden your horizons and enrich your life in so many ways. Now, here's where Game Changer gets a little controversial. They challenge the traditional view of gold as a safe haven investment.
Yeah, that's definitely a bold statement.
I mean, gold is often seen as the go-to asset when the economy is uncertain. Why do they advise against putting all your eggs in the gold basket, so to speak?
Well, they back up their claim with historical data showing that gold's returns have been pretty inconsistent, and a lot of times it doesn't even keep up with inflation.
So it's not as safe as people think.
Not necessarily, and they actually show how gold has often lagged behind other asset classes like stocks in the long run.
Interesting. It's like they're saying, don't let emotions drive your investment decisions. Look at the facts.
Exactly. They're all about making informed choices based on evidence and research, not just following the herd or getting swept up in fear and hype. And they even delve into the psychology of investing, talking about things like loss aversion.
Loss aversion, what's that?
It's basically our tendency to feel the pain of a loss more strongly than the pleasure of a gain.
Oh, I definitely relate to that.
Right. And they explain how this can lead us to make bad decisions with our investments, like selling stocks when the market dips, even though that's probably the worst time to sell.
I've been there.
They argue that having a diversified portfolio can really help with this. It smooths out the ride and reduces the temptation to react emotionally to market swings.
So it's all about creating a portfolio that you're comfortable with, one that aligns with your risk tolerance and your long-term goals.
Precisely. And amidst all this talk of investing, they remind us of something else that's crucial: being mindful of our information diet.
Our information diet, I like that. What do they mean by that?
It's about being selective about the financial news and advice we consume. In today's world, we're bombarded with so much information, especially online, and they argue that this can actually lead to inaction.
Oh yeah, information overload. I've definitely felt that. You get so caught up in reading and researching that you never actually do anything.
Exactly. They encourage us to focus on quality over quantity when it comes to information. Find those trusted sources that provide valuable insights and actionable advice, and tune out all the noise and hype.
It's about finding the signal in all the noise.
Exactly. And they also emphasize the importance of taking breaks from the constant stream of information. Step away from the computer, put down the phone, disconnect from social media for a while. It allows you to clear your head and gain perspective.
That's such a good reminder. It's easy to get sucked into that vortex of information and forget to just live your life. So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about making smart housing decisions, the power of automation and compound interest, using credit cards strategically, even hacking travel to make it more affordable. We've debunked some myths about gold and explored the psychology behind our financial choices. It's clear that Game Changer offers a wealth of information and practical strategies for anyone who wants to take control of their finances.
They really do. And one of their core messages is that building wealth isn't just about having more money. It's about aligning your finances with your values and priorities, creating a life that truly brings you joy and fulfillment.
I love that. It's about designing a life that reflects who you are and what matters most to you, not what society tells you is important.
Exactly. And in the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some additional strategies from game changers that can help you do just that.
All right, so we've uncovered so much already from Game Changer, but I know there are even more strategies they share to help us reach our financial goals. What else do they have up their sleeves?
Well, one thing they really emphasize is the power of negotiation, and they provide some really useful techniques that you can apply to all sorts of areas of your financial life, from lowering those monthly bills to getting a better interest rate on a loan.
Negotiation is definitely a skill that can pay off big time. What kind of approach do they recommend?
They're big on being prepared. Before you go into any negotiation, do your research, gather as much information as you can about the other side's position, figure out what your leverage points are. It's all about going into it with confidence, knowing what you're talking about.
Be prepared, know your stuff, makes sense. Any other tactics?
They also suggest staying calm and focused, avoid getting aggressive or confrontational. It's much more effective to try to build rapport and find common ground.
So it's more like a collaboration than a battle.
Exactly. And one way to do that is to use empathy. Really try to see things from the other person's perspective, understand their needs.
Empathy, such a powerful tool and often overlooked in these situations.
I know, right?
Okay, any other practical tips they offer?
Oh, yeah, a couple more good ones. They suggest starting with a high anchor, meaning ask for more than you actually expect to get. It gives you some room to negotiate. And be prepared to walk away if you can't reach an agreement that works for you.
Knowing your limits, what you're willing to accept and what you're not. So much of this is about feeling empowered, right? Not
Yeah.
being afraid to advocate for yourself in these financial situations.
Absolutely. And throughout the book, they keep coming back to this idea that building wealth is not just about earning more money. It's about making sure your financial decisions align with what's truly important to you.
I love that. It's about creating a life that feels authentic and fulfilling, not just chasing after a bigger paycheck.
Exactly. They argue that true wealth lies in having the freedom to live a life that is meaningful to you, a life that aligns with your passions, a life where you can spend quality time with your loved ones, a life where you have the resources to make a positive impact on the world.
It's about so much more than just the numbers in your bank account. It's about living in alignment with your values. So how do they suggest we get there?
Well, they talk about the importance of identifying your why, your ultimate purpose, your driving force behind wanting to be financially secure. And they believe that having a clear sense of why will keep you motivated and help you make better financial decisions.
Like a guiding star, a vision for the future that you're working towards. And speaking of a vision for the future, in the last part of the book, they talk about their concept of the rich life, and they seem to redefine what that means.
They do. They challenge that traditional idea that living a rich life is all about fancy cars and expensive vacations. They offer a much more holistic and fulfilling definition.
So what's their take on the rich life?
It's about having the freedom to pursue your passions, to spend time with people you care about, to make a difference in the world. It's about living a life rich in experiences, personal growth, genuine connection.
It's about shifting our focus from material possessions to things that truly matter.
Exactly. From outward appearances to inner fulfillment.
So how do we get there? What kind of practical advice do they give for creating this kind of rich life?
Well, they encourage us to find joy in the simple things, to prioritize spending quality time over acquiring more stuff. They're big advocates for a minimalist approach, decluttering your life both physically and mentally, creating space for what truly matters.
Simplifying, prioritizing, focusing on what brings lasting happiness. Such good advice.
Look,
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Game Changer, what key takeaways would you like to leave our listener with?
let's condense all this wisdom into a nice, neat 10-point summary.
Okay, I like it. A top 10 list. Give me with it.
All right, number one, ditch that startup myth. Joining a late-stage startup might not be the ticket to riches. A steady corporate job can be just as rewarding, if not more so, in the long run.
Number 2, embrace the conscious spending plan. Divide your income into those 4 essential buckets: fixed costs, investments, savings, and that all-important guilt-free spending.
Number three, shrink those pesky fixed costs. Negotiate those bills down. Really analyze whether buying or renting makes more sense for you right now. Get creative with finding ways to reduce your daily expenses.
Number 4, make saving a habit. Automate it. Take the thinking and the willpower out of it. And remember, consistency is key.
Number five, compound interest is your friend. Start investing early. Even small amounts can grow significantly over time. It's all about letting time work its magic.
Number 6, credit cards aren't the enemy. Use them wisely, build good credit, and take advantage of those perks and rewards.
Number seven, become a travel hacker. Find those incredible deals on flights and accommodations. Prioritize those enriching experiences. See the world without breaking the bank.
Number 8, think twice about gold as your primary investment. It might not be as safe or as profitable as you think. Do your research and explore other options.
Number nine, don't be afraid of the stock market. Investing in stocks can be a great way to grow your wealth over the long term.
And number 10, be mindful of your information diet. Choose your sources wisely, focus on quality over quantity, and don't let information overload paralyze you.
There you have it, the top 10 takeaways from Gamechanger. Remember, financial freedom is within your reach. It's not about luck or inheritance. It's about making smart choices, developing good habits, and aligning your finances with your values and your dreams.
This book is a fantastic guide, but you're the one in control. Take charge of your financial future and create a life that is truly rich and fulfilling.
Even small steps taken consistently can lead to amazing results. Start today, embark on this journey, and watch your financial well-being blossom.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.